What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. Amron, and best ball summer is in full effect. This is a great tweet from Eric Bimeford, just sort of outlining the absurdity of best ball right now between the puppy on Underdog, which just closed, Best Ball Mania 3, and DraftKings Big Tournament. We are now at 285,000 best ball tournament entries so far in 2022. 285,000 is nearly double the size of Best Ball Mania 2 from last year. That was the big tournament for Underdog, the biggest tournament in all of Best Ball Mania 2. We've doubled that at this point, and it's only June. The growth of the game has been wild, and I wanted to come out here and make a video for all the people out there that are searching up Underdog. How do I even play this? What is even going on? All the people that are lost on how to play, what the difference is between redraft and best ball, what the difference in strategy is between redraft and best ball. So I kind of want to break that all down today. I think there's going to be a lot to gain for beginners, intermediate guys, experts, all of that good stuff. So this is going to be a good one. I have like 10 pages of notes here. Been making this outline all day long. I'm recording this at like 9:30. So without further ado, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, thirsty, trying to choose. I mean, I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
So let's first kind of talk about where my point of view is coming from. Let's be clear for a second. I am sponsored by Underdog. Promo code RON. When you deposit on there for the first time, if you use promo code RON, they will match your deposit all the way up to $100. You deposit 10, they'll match 10. You deposit 25, they'll match 25. And that'll give you a bunch of bullets in your chamber at these best ball tournaments. Now, I want to be clear. They did not ask me to make this video. This isn't supposed to be one big ad for Underdog. I'm really just looking to talk about strategy, and I think we're going to have some really actionable takeaways from this video. I made a similar video last offseason before even hitting 1,000 subscribers, and I didn't even have a promo code then. This is just something that I've been doing. I love best ball. I love where that game is heading, and I've been playing since the 2020 season. So I've played 2 full seasons, and I'm now heading into year 3. And I haven't done anything crazy in terms of like winning millions of dollars in best ball. I pride myself on being one of the most skin in the game guys on YouTube when it comes to Underdog. Again, I pretty much begged them to give me a promo code last offseason because I played it so much and wanted to be a part of their company. So this is really something that I do believe in and that I actually play a ton. Now, you can see my icon on the game. I have that red shield, which means that I've been in over 1,000 drafts. I don't even know how many drafts I've been in. I just know it's over 1,000. And I also do have a ring to show for one tournament win for your boy, which is really cool. They gave me a little Underdog champion ring. Now, of course, nothing too crazy. It's not like I won Best Ball Mania and won like $1 million. I won $2,000 on a $25 entry on the Bills-Chiefs game. And by the way, that $2,000 was in my bank account within the week. The withdrawal process on Underdog was super, super clean. Now, let's talk about best ball. This whole video is going to be structured around Underdog best ball. But again, I just want to talk about the strategy components of it. So let's break down what best ball is in general on Underdog. It is 0.5 PPR scoring, 18 rounds. You start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a flex, a tight end, and you have 10 bench spots. The best ball part of the equation, and what set this apart from redraft, is that Underdog automatically sets your best lineup every single week. So you can draft teams in June, July, August, September, and not have to worry about them until the season wraps up in December, which the best part about that for me is that I can just fire off hundreds of drafts and just give myself as many lottery tickets as possible at those big cash prizes that you don't really have access to in managed leagues, where you can only set the waivers and lineups and everything across like 5, 6, 7, 12 teams. I know that there's like sickos out there that have hundreds of teams that they manage and do waivers on. It's just not realistic. And the question is what does this look like week to week? Like when they're automatically setting the lineup, what does that even really look like? And I love showing a screenshot of a random week for one of my teams. And this is my best team from last year. It advanced to the week 16 round of the playoffs in Best Ball Mania 2. Didn't make it to week 17, only got 6th place that week. But as you guys can see here, in week 16, the players who started for me in week 16 all have colors next to their name. So Dak Prescott, Ronald Jones, Darrell Henderson, Byron Pringle, which is pretty funny that Byron Pringle was the wide receiver 1 in week 16 for me. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Goedert. And this is Best Ball Mania 2 again. So this was a $25 to enter team, $2 million up top, which brings me to my next point, which is contest selection. And the biggest lesson I learned last year is that sit and goes, these sort of cash games Underdog has, they're not for me. I think that they're fine for beginners, and some of you guys might want to go try those out, and they're fun. Like even like a private one you can do with your friends, I think is fun. But the way they work is Underdog has these sit and go cash leagues that are about $3 to enter all the way up to $100 to enter, and they're pretty much normal redraft leagues, but they're best ball. So you have a 12-person prize pool, and the prize money goes to the top 3. So for instance, in a $5 draft, first gets you $32, second gets you $17, third gets you $5. And I have 2 issues with it. One being it's not an amazing ROI to spend $3 to like $100 this far out and only having the upside to 6 extra money 1 out of 12 times. The other being that if you draft a bunch of teams and you draft a monster, you won't get rewarded. Now, what I mean by drafting a monster is last year, I literally titled this team What Could Have Been. This team had Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, George Kittle, Dalvin Cook, James Conner, Darrell Henderson, Devin Singletary. And all I got to show for it was $32 from a $5 sit and go draft. If this was an entry in the puppy, right, a $5 to enter tournament with crazy money up top, this team could have made hundreds, if not of thousands of dollars. I'm genuinely too scared to even sit down and do the math and be like, okay, this team scored this much in week whatever, maybe I would have advanced. I don't even want to know. I genuinely do not even want to know if it would have made it that far. But again, it stings that I looked across all my teams. The highest scoring one was a $5 sit and go. So last year, I was about 50-50. I had 50% of my entries in tournament, 50% of them in cash games, about 50-50. I decided this year I'm going to be a 99% tournament guy. I'll leave the cash game styles for, managed leagues where I like that deal, where it's $100 or $50 to get in, 12-man pool. Okay, it's like a cash game of poker. You have, waivers and all that. You have your buddies in the league. That's fine. But I think in best ball, when you can just, hit that lottery ticket hundreds of times, right? You can max out Best Ball Mania 3 150 times. You can max out the puppies 150 times. So you can just keep on scratching off those lottery tickets. And I want to have maximum upside. Now, again, that's not to say that you guys can't go out there and play in normal leagues and have fun. But I kind of want to steer this direction now to just talking about Best Ball Mania 3 on Underdog. And this tournament is the same format as a normal best ball in terms of 0.5 PPR, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 10 bench, and it being best ball. Now, the idea of the tournament is that you play in a standard 12-man league from weeks 1 through 14. The thing that's different is that once the playoffs start, everything changes. Now, this original league in weeks 1 through 14 is considered round 1, and instead of having like the top 4, the top 6 teams advance, only the top 2 scoring teams advance to week 15. Now, once you get to week 15, which is round 2, you have a bunch of pods of 10 teams who are all competing against each other in week 15, and all of those teams were top 2 in their original 12-man leagues. The top team from this 10-man pod then advances to round 3. The rest of the teams in round 2 get $35 to $40. Then you have round 3, which is a pot of 16 teams. This is as far as I made it last year, who all advance out of round 2. So you have the best of the best. It's a pot of 16 teams in week 16, and 1 out of 16 of those teams then advance to round 4 in week 17. All of those teams who made it to round 3 but didn't make it to the final round make anywhere from $505 to $75. Then you have round 4, the final round in week 17, where you now have 470 teams who made it through that gauntlet, and they all compete. And depending on where they finish, they are making anywhere from $2 million to $1,000, which across the board, if you just make it there, that is pretty good ROI on a $25 investment. Now, that's kind of the structure of the tournament. Some side notes are you can submit a max of 150 entries, and the team with the most regular season points is going to get $1 million this year, which is a really cool twist. The crazy part is that even with that $1 million, it's still worth noting 90% of the $10 million in prizes up top are only available to the 470 teams in that final round. Our main goal is to make it to week 17 because that is where the money is at. So the question becomes, how can we optimize and draft our best ball teams with the idea that we want to make it to that final round? And the big picture thing is, before we even talk about structurally drafting in terms of how many running backs and all that, is we need to draft as if we're right. And what I mean when I say that is there are 451,200 people in this tournament. 90% of the money goes to the top 470 teams. Your team needs to be in the top 0.1% of teams in the entire contest to even have a shot at that money. So you don't get there to the top 0.1% by drafting handcuffs, by putting in fail safes in case the players don't work out, right? You don't draft Christian McCaffrey and say, oh, what if he gets injured? I'll draft 6 or 7 running backs just in case. There is no just in case in tournaments. You need to draft every team assuming that this is the team that is a 99.9th percentile outcome and is going to give me the money. Because if we shift our focus off of week 17 where 90% of the money is, this entire thing isn't super profitable. We want that expected value in that final round. So we should be less worried about trying to advance out of our original 12-man league, and we should be more worried about making a team that might not advance out of that first 12-man league, but on the aggregate has an insane ceiling that you built where if things hit right on this team, this is going to be an absolute powerhouse. And the question is, well, how do we do that? Like in actuality, right? In practice. And the first thing is that we just draft the best players, right? 0 RB, robust RB, all that doesn't really matter if you drafted Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Mark Andrews, Jamar Chase, all of those guys. The issue is that no one has the answers to the test this far out. You don't win $2 million by just simply being better at picking players than everybody else. Everyone's going to have hits, everyone's going to have misses. There is no one out there that is just so sick at picking the best players in fantasy football that they are going to win millions of dollars. It's about drafting within structure because we know that there is actual edges to be had from drafting in structure that we can quantify. Without waiver wires to fix draft mistakes, we need to be very conscious of how we're building these teams so that they can sustain within a full season and make it to week 17 without falling apart. So let's talk about the 3 main structures of best ball drafting, and they are all centered around the running back position. And the first one we'll talk about is hero running back. And the idea here is that we take a running back in the first 2 rounds, and then you just piece your running back to production together later on in the draft. So this is an idea I'll be harping on all offseason. I love Hero RB. It's probably my favorite redraft strategy across the board, not just best ball. But the idea here is to swing on this year's Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor in those first 2 rounds, and then wait on drafting a second running back until round 8 or so. And you might ask, why round 8 or so? Don't you want to lock in that second running back and get good production out of him? The thing is that we sort of want to get in early, dip our toes and take that one stab at a legendary running back that can go out there and be a league winner and then avoid the running back dead zone. And this is a great chart from RotoViz, and it shows each draft position's advance rate above and below expectation given drafting a running back in that given round. So as you guys can see, drafting a running back in the first 2 rounds had positive advancement rates where rounds 3 through 7 is an absolute dead zone, as they call it, warning zone, wasteland, whatever you want to call it. Drafting running backs rounds 3 through 7 is a losing strategy, and especially in a hero RB build where you just want to take one stab and just sort of bypass the rest of the fragility at the running back position until later, that's the move. Now, I have 26 entries in Best Ball Mania 3 so far. Here is a pretty standard hero RB build. I kind of want to show you guys what they look like on paper as well. And here I took Mixon in round 2, and then I didn't touch running back again until round 9 with Kareem Hunt. And I think a lot of you guys might see 5 running backs, especially on this team, where it's like Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, Raheem Mostert, Khalil Herbert. Those guys might not get it done for you. But again, you have to draft as if you are right so you can go out there and make the big money round in week 17. You have to bet that you can hit a team where you have Mixon up top, and then you draft next year's Rashad Penny, Sony Michel, Justin Jackson, in those amount of bullets that you're permitted to in 4 extra running backs on top of Mixon. Because the more running backs you draft, your win rate, your EV, all of that goes down because, again, you have to assume that you are right. You can't have any meat left on the bone where, okay, you cast this huge wide net on running back, you draft 7 running backs instead of 5, or you draft 8 running backs instead of 5 in a hero RB build. You've drafted a running back early. You've drafted them often. You've now given up advantages or even just being average at every other position. So now you have just hamstrung your team because you're trying to play it safe and get enough running backs so that you'll be fine by taking away your advantages at wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end, and that's not a winning strategy. And again, we can prove this with actual numbers. Again, this is helping your advance rates, your playoff rates, your finals rates. This is from last year on RotoViz. They have a really cool tool where you can look at best ball, advance rates, and win rates. And last year, when people drafted their running back in the first 2 rounds and their RB2 in round 7 or later, their win rates, advance rates were amazing. As you guys can see, 5 running backs had the most teams advance to the final round at 0.25%, which is really strong considering, again, 0.1% of the teams are going to advance to that round. So that's about 0.15% over expectation on a 0.1% expected output. You can also get away with going with 6 or 7 running backs here. You guys can see they have higher advance rates to the playoffs, but they have lower advance rates to the finals. And you kind of just have to weigh that how you want. I personally am of the idea that I want to have the maximum upside to make the finals where all the money is. But you're not losing a ton from 6 or 7, so you can kind of audible to 6 or 7 here or there when it seems fit, right? You could do a running back in like the second round, and then maybe your next 5 running backs are the last 5 rounds of the draft. So you can kind of structure it in a way where you're not giving up too much opportunity cost to pack in more running backs. Now, what I will say on the whole of hero running back, my ideal setup in terms of quarterback, running backs, wide receiver, tight end is 2-5-9-2. But you can mess around with it. You can go 2-6-8-2, you can go 3-5-8-2, 2-5-8-3. You can mess around with how you want to treat those onesie positions. By the way, we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about quarterback and tight end, but ideally, you want to have 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends. Maybe in some builds, you can push those out to 3-3 or 3-2 or 2-3, anything like that. You want to have, in my eyes, I'm shooting for 4 quarterbacks and tight ends total. I think 5 is okay. 6 is the absolute max. Getting 4 at either one of those onesie positions, in my eyes, is not a winning strategy to make it to the finals. Then after Hero RB, we have the yin and yang of draft strategy where we have Hyperfragile and Zero RB. And the idea in best ball, which sort of weighs these draft strategies, is we want to either draft running backs early or often. We want it to be one or the other. You can't take 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds and then end up with 7 total. Again, you're going to hamstring your team because you can't have your cake and eat it too in that instance because you're just pulling too much opportunity cost from all the other positions. So let's talk about Hyperfragile and how that works. Now, this was made famous by Best Ball Mania 1 winner. So this was 2020, Justin Herzig, $200,000 up top. He drafted 3 running backs early, 4 total, and then he stopped, which is perfect. You take swings on league-winning running backs early, you assume they're league-winning running backs, and then you don't hedge your bet. You cut it off there. You draft a Tony Pollard late and take an upside swing on a handcuff type guy. I would define Hyperfragile as drafting 3 running backs before round 6 and stopping at 4 total. Though I do love drafting teams in this setup where I go 3 running backs in the first 6 rounds and then I stop. I just go 3 running backs. I think it's a way to sort of push the limits a little bit, but it's not something I would do super often. Now, if we look at results from last year, these teams are really bad. This is teams with 3 to 4 running backs where they drafted 3 running backs before round 6 and stopped at 3 or 4. They did awful. 0% in the finals for running backs. For 3 running backs, 0.07% in the finals. Only a 12.9% playoff advance rate, which I believe the implied should be like 16.6. So it was bad last year. The issue is that last year was a bad year for the strategy, but again, it's only 1 year of data, right? Last year broke in a really weird way where we had Derrick Henry go down, we had Saquon Barkley go down, we had Christian McCaffrey go down, and you had multiple league-winning wide receivers with Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Jamar Chase, all of those guys, and you only had Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler as your league-winning running backs, and in most drafts, they were both going in like the second round. So there wasn't really a setup to take 3 running backs super early and have a really stacked team because of that. Now, again, this is only 1 year of data. The year before that, we just saw someone take down the tournament with this strategy, so we know it is viable. Now, in terms of how I would implement this strategy, we have Herzig, who ran a 3-4-9-2, which is fine. I would say I prefer a 2-4-10-2, but you can go 3-4-9-2, you can go 2-4-9-3, you can go 3-3-9-3 if you want to get weird, 3-3-10-2 if you want to get weird, even 2-3-11-2 if you want to get weird, but you can sort of start to alter these a little bit around your running backs. And just a little bit of a side note, the way that I use these strategies is pretty much I go into a draft, I take what values fall to me, I see kind of how my running backs shake out, and then from there I apply one of the 3 main draft strategies we're talking about here and just the principles of them. So sometimes you can sort of get really weird and funky with it where you can go Hero RB, but maybe you take your Hero RB in the 3rd round like I did with Swift last year. So you could go two wide receivers up top, Hero RB with Swift in the 3rd round, and then just sort of piece together a 2-5-9-2 build with a running back in round 3. With Hyperfragile, you can get really weird where maybe you take running backs like round 2, you take one like round 5, you take 2 like round 11 and 12, and you just cut it off there, and you hope that those running backs pan out. So you can kind of stretch it out a little bit, get a little bit weird with the roster construction, and sort of alter it to your own liking, because you want to get unique in these tournaments as well. And that's something else to be thinking about in terms of making teams that nobody else has. You don't want to get duped. Now, last up in terms of strategy, we'll talk about zero RB, which is the one where people are going to get out tiki torches and pitchforks and all of that. People hate to talk about zero RB. People hate zero RB. They think it can't work. It's the devil, whatever. I try on this channel to eliminate as much of the stigma on zero RB as possible. And for best ball tournaments, I would define zero RB as not taking a running back until after the 5th round and then loading up on a bunch and maxing out at 6 or 7, maybe doing 5. And as you guys can see here on the Advanced Rate Explorer on RotoViz, zero RB was pretty damn good in 2021. The teams who didn't take a running back until after round 5 and ended up with 5 to 7 did really, really good. Players who stopped at 5 to 6 running backs in this build saw a below average playoff rate, right? You had 13.4% playoff rate, 15.6% playoff rate, but they had an absolute crazy win rate or advance rate to the finals, where they had 0.29% of teams in the finals and 0.27% of teams in the finals for teams with 5 or 6 running backs. Those both beat out the hero running back build with 5 running backs. So they crushed in terms of getting to the finals. These zero RB teams, they're just a little bit more risky because on the aggregate, they're not going to get to the playoffs as often, but they're going to get you into the finals with the teams that do get there because they are just going to be absolute powerhouses. Now, again, yes, we're forfeiting some advance rate out of our original 12-man league, and we're burning some money doing that. But again, 90% of the money is in the finals. Me personally, the way that I play, I am prioritizing everything that I can on making it there. So if I have to forfeit some advance rate in the playoffs to have a supercharged team in the finals, I will do that. Now, 7 running backs was a bit more conservative with a 19.4% playoff rate, which was good, but a much lower 0.1% finals rate than the other options. But again, still in the green, still above your 0.1% expected. So you can go anywhere from 5 to 7 running backs in zero RB builds. But the entire thesis of zero running back is to stack up on quarterback, wide receiver, tight ends early, and build a huge advantage at those positions. And then as the season goes on, your team is going to have a stable of 5 to 7 running backs, where as running backs go down and your handcuffs become RB1s and ambiguous backfields sort of shake out, your team gets really, really strong because you already have advantages everywhere else. And as running back injuries hit, they aren't hurting your team as much as they're hurting Jonathan Taylor or Eckler teams who, God forbid, those guys get hurt. But you can see how if you draft a hero running back team around Jonathan Taylor and he gets hurt, you're dealing with a little bit of a tougher situation there than a zero RB team, which kind of benefits from that. Like, let's say you have Nyheim Hines on your bench. Those teams really benefit from the chaos of the season, and it's why they thrive so much. Because if you do hit that like 1 in 100 zero RB team that's really strong and makes it to the finals, you're looking at a powerhouse. I know Pete Overzet last year, him and I believe it might have been Beimfor, the guy who I brought up at the top of this show. They had a zero RB team where they took Raheem Mostert first. He didn't do anything, but they had like Rashad Penny, maybe Devin Singletary. I don't know. I can't really remember this team. I remember I had Rashad Penny. I remember they took Devontae Adams in the first round, but zero RB teams are really good for tournaments in terms of just being powerhouses making it to that final round. And the team I showed you guys earlier, my best team from last year that advanced the furthest was 6 in my 16-team pod in round 3, almost made it to round 4, was a zero RB team. This is my best team from last year besides the one that was in a sit-and-go, the what could have been team. But I started this team, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Mahomes, Dak, Hawkinson, Goddard. And then I took my first running back in round 8 with James Robinson. Then I went Ronald Jones, Melvin Gordon, Darrell Henderson, James White, Jerick McKinnon. And I never even got points from James White. And Jerick McKinnon wasn't even that great, but James Robinson gave me great weeks. Melvin Gordon gave me great weeks. Darrell Henderson gave me great weeks. And this was again before the Cam Akers injury, so I really benefited from that chaos. So there was a lot to benefit on this team. I will say this was a really weird team. Again, I'm saying in these builds or in these tournaments, you kind of want to get weird and just really experiment and get kind of crazy, especially in like the puppy when it's a $5 to enter tournament. Now, again, there's not $10 million in prizes, but all this applies to the puppy as well, which I'm sure Underdog will have 3 or 4 of them by the time week 1 rolls around, where it's $5 to enter. 90% of the money is going to be in week 17 again, but it's just not going to be like millions of dollars. It'll be like 100,000, 50,000, stuff like that. Now, again, I think it was a little bit weird that I took Goddard and Hawkinson back to back like that. I think I was getting really weird there. But with zero RB, the ideal build for me is a 2-6-8-2, but you can get weird where you go 2-5-9-2 and you really bet on your 5 running backs. You can go 2-7-7-2. You can go 3-6-8-2. You can go 2-6-8-3. Or no, you can't. You can go 3-5-8-2, 2.583. You can go 3.672, 2.673, all of that stuff, and really sort of mess around and experiment with those types of builds. Now, we have concrete evidence that we can improve our odds of making it to the finals with structural drafting. Now, the last thing you can do to increase your chances of winning it all outside of structure, outside of just simply picking the best players because you are a fantasy football oracle, is stacking. And I know that there's also a negative connotation with stacking, but this is a way that you can correlate your outcomes, right? So let's say last year you drafted Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. If Chase has a monster year, you can assume that Joe Burrow does, and vice versa. If Joe Burrow throws for 40 touchdowns, you better bet that Jamar Chase will be catching a lot of those touchdowns. So when you have Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, you have 2 roster spots on your team that are accounted for with one bet, right? It's one correlated outcome. It's one single bet because, again, Joe Burrow can't be great without Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase can't be great without Joe Burrow 99% of the time. So instead of flipping a coin twice, right? So it's, let's say instead of Jamar Chase, it was Brandon Ayuk last year, right? In that same spot. Okay, Brandon Ayuk's a coin flip again. The chances of Jamar Chase or Ayuk or Joe Burrow succeeding isn't 50-50 chance, but just for the sake of the example, let's say you flip a coin for Ayuk, you flip a coin for Joe Burrow. We already know the outcome. Joe Burrow hits. But if instead you take Jamar Chase to correlate him with Joe Burrow, or vice versa, because Joe Burrow would be later. So if you take Jamar Chase and you correlate him with Joe Burrow, that's only one coin flip instead. So instead of would it be 50% versus like a 25% of having 2 players smash on your team? That's essentially the thesis of stacking, is you're placing less bets to get to a correlated outcome. Now, again, on this channel, we back things up with data. So this is a great chart from TJ Hernandez on Twitter, where he shows how stacking is plus EV in terms of how many stacks were on finals teams. So this is from 2020 and 2021 Best Ball Manias, where he looked at all the teams in that week 17 round and how many of them got there from stacks, or just how many of them had stacks going into that final round. And as you guys can see, rosters with 0 stacks, which a stack can be quarterback, wide receiver, it can be wide receiver, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back, tight end, just 2 players or more from the same team. 0% in 2020, 0.6% in 2021 had 0 stacks. As you guys can see, that number just keeps climbing up as you come down. And as you get to like 3 individual stacks, that is where you have the biggest numbers. You have 40% of the field in 2020 had 3 stacks. You have 30% in 2021 had about 3 stacks. 31% had 4 stacks. And as you guys can see here, a majority of the field had 3 or more stacks on their teams. Now, stacking comes with one important caveat. I cannot stress this enough. The biggest misconception is that people think that when you're stacking, you're like reaching multiple rounds to complete these stacks. That's not it at all. The main caveat is that we do not reach to complete our stacks. I cannot stress this enough, fellas. Do not reach to complete your stacks. You are just, any EV you've gained from stacking, you've lost from reaching a full round. So I never reach for a stack. It's just something that's a tiebreaker at ADP, where if let's say I already have Josh Allen and we come around to the next round or 2 rounds later and I'm staring down Gabriel Davis and I'm staring down Allen Robinson at the same ADP spot. I'm taking Gabriel Davis there because he correlates to Josh Allen. I'm not reaching a full round to get Gabriel Davis to secure the stack. I'm just getting him because he's a tiebreaker. Now, the cherry on top of this entire thing is not just stacking individual teams, but stacking week 17 games. This is where we really get into our galaxy brain type stuff. Because again, 90% of the money is won in that final week. We want to optimize our teams to be as strong as possible for week 17. We should be optimizing our roster for that outcome. And you might think this sounds crazy, stacking, going this far where we're stacking and then we're going week 17 stacks. Like this is becoming too much. Now, to show the power of game stacking, which is well known by the DFS community, this is a great tweet from NFL_T-Strack. He's a best ball player. He plays in Europe, so he can't play Underdog, which sucks for him. But he wanted to sort of outline how game stacking works, where we looked at week 17 of last year, and you can see 7 of the top 10 scores in week 17 last year came from 2 games. You have Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and Darrell Williams from the KC at Cincinnati game, and you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashad Penny, DK Metcalf, Russell Wilson from the Detroit-Seattle game. So if you used our stack, right, Burrow and Jamar Chase, and let's say later on in the draft, you saw, okay, I have Bengals. Let's maybe just get a bring back with a Chief on the way back, and you go Darrell Williams, boom, you're now rolling around in cash. It's also worth noting that the BBM2 winner last year, Liam Murphy, he had Amon-Ra St. Brown and Rashad Penny, so they were correlated. Now again, this is at ADP. We're not reaching to make these week 17 stacks. And also on top of that, I think one of the things a lot of you guys are thinking right now is, we don't know what games are going to pop off. So if I already know the Week 17 schedule, right? So we have Cincinnati versus Buffalo. We have the big ones in terms of Chargers versus Rams. We have, there's like one more that I can't think of. You have Chiefs versus Broncos. Those are the big three. But it's like, what if those don't shoot out and you have a garbage game like Detroit versus Chicago that shoots out? Here's the thing. I'm targeting all Week 17 game stacks because, again, we don't have a damn clue what's going to happen in Week 17. You could have the Chicago versus Detroit game pop off. You could have the Jets versus Seattle game pop off. You can have the Steelers versus Ravens game pop off. So what I'm doing is if I complete a stack, I then have it in the back of my head, okay, I now have Lamar Jackson, I have Mark Andrews. Let's target Claypool down the line. Let's target Freiermuth down the line. Let's even maybe bring it back with a Benny Snell. So that's kind of just what you're thinking through in your head as you complete a stack. You then want to know sort of what is their Week 17 opponent and go from there. Now, again, I cannot stress this enough. This is at ADP. So we're not reaching to complete these stacks. We're not reaching to complete Week 17 stacks. We are taking players at or after their ADP. Now, that is it. That is essentially my best ball manifesto on Underdog when it comes to playing in tournaments and just kind of the format overall. So I hope all of you guys enjoy this video. I put a ton of work into it. I think that this is going to be a video that's not going to do really well when I first post it, but I hope as the summer rolls on and everyone's searching how the hell am I even going to play on Underdog, I hope this video sort of picks up from there. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Again, if you want to get in on the fun this summer, make sure you go down below, check it out in the description. It'll be down below in the comments. My promo code is Ron. You just hit the link. It'll take you right to the app, right where you can put the promo code in. You put in promo code Ron and they will match your deposit on Underdog all the way up to $100. So if you deposit $10, they'll match $10. You deposit $25, they'll match $25. All of that good stuff. So with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. 10-0, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Me.